Hello students, welcome to lecture number 7 of online chemistry classes of our college. In last class, we learnt about the methods of preparation of colloid. We have completed that. The first one is the chemical method, also called as aggregation method. Next one is Bradig's earth method, called as electrical dispersion. And third one is the peptidization. After learning these three methods, also we have completed purification of colloids, because if colloids are to be kept stable, the impurities and excess of electrolyte is to be removed out. Three methods we have learned: dialysis, electrodialysis and ultrafiltration. I hope that you have gone through this matter in textbook and notes also, and you have listened properly and you understood this concept. Now today we will go ahead and we have to learn now properties of colloids. Properties of colloids, or we can say colloidal solution. The meaning is same. Colloids, colloidal solution. We should take them as of equal meaning. The first property is the colligative property. Colligative property. Now, what we mean by colligative properties? You have to learn this in detail in second topic named solution. But now, here we can say that colligative properties are those properties which depends on number of particles. Number of particles. If particles are more, colligative, this word, it has same origin as college. College is a Greek word which means assembly. Assembly means number. Assembly of learned people. When very intelligent student come together, we call it as college. That is the meaning, original meaning of that. So this property depends on number of particles. But we can say colloids are formed by aggregation of particles. The small particles, they get aggregated, like we have seen in multimolecular colloid. Aggregation of particles. That's why number of particles due to this aggregation decreases. When colloid is formed from true solution, number of particles decreases. So you can say in number of particles, if we compare between true solution means our solution particle size is less than 1 nanometer, with the colloidal solution, we can say that number of particles are greater in true solution. Of course, they should be of same concentration. If we refer concentration, the number of particles are different. 1 molar solution means 1 mole particles. 2 molar solution means 2 mole particles. Number of particles will differ. We have difference in concentration. But if we make this also 1 molar and this also 1 molar, then we are talking of same concentration. True solution and colloidal solutions are made. Number of particles of true solutions are greater than colloidal solution. That's why colligative properties of true solution is greater than colloidal solution, because colligative property is directly proportional to the number of particles. Now, what are the examples of colligative properties? First is the relative lowering of vapor pressure, decrease of vapor pressure. Relative lowering of vapor pressure. units. I told you that you have to learn these properties in solution. Half of the solution topic is based on these qualitative properties. Then next one is, we can say, elevation. Elevation is increase in boiling point. And third is depression or decrease. Depression in freezing point. And fourth is osmotic pressure. So what is the conclusion? Conclusion is that if we have two solutions, true solution and colloidal solution of same concentration, colligative property magnitude is greater in true solution because number of particles are more in true solution. And as colloids, they are formed by aggregation of particles. The number of particles are lower than true solution and their colligative properties are of lower magnitude. So this is the first property, namely colligative property. Now the next property is the Tyndall effect, one of the most frequently asked part in the examination. Tyndall effect. Tyndall is the name of scientist who studied this phenomenon very carefully. That's why, to honor him, it is called as Tyndall effect. This Tyndall effect is also called as optical property of colloidal solution. Optical property of colloidal solution. Now what is this Tyndall effect? If we take the true solution means, again I am saying that our solution, what we call it as a solution. Why we are using this is true? Because we have another solution called as colloidal solution. That's why to differentiate between these two, we are using this prefix true solution. Otherwise, solution is what we normally call as solution where particle size is less than 1 nanometer. True solution, it is placed in dark room and beam of light is passing. Beam of light is passed through it. What we observe is that the path of light, the direction in which light proceeds, is not visible. We never see how the light is propagating to the true solution because solution is clear. Because particles are so small that they disappear. We use the word disappear. That's why no light is seen, path of light is seen, even though we are passing the beam of light. But if we place the colloidal solution now, place in dark, what is difference? Homogeneous, heterogeneous. Particles dissolve, disappears, dispersed. Less than 1 nanometer, 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer. Like these differences are there. If we pass the beam of light here, what we see here, that path of light is illuminated. Illuminated means bright. We actually see how light is passing. We can trace the propagation of light through the colloidal solution. Path of light is illuminated but there are two conditions. When viewed through, when we see it viewed through ultra microscope. Ultra microscope is a device in which we can see the particles. When viewed through ultra microscope at right angle to light, it means if light is passing through this medium, through this ultra microscope we have to see right angle like that. So when viewed through ultra microscope at right angle to the incident light. Now why this path of light is illuminated? It is because of, this is the definition of Tyndall effect, scattering of light by colloidal particles of colloidal solution, dispersed phase particle, is called Tyndall effect. So this is the most important word for us. Scattering of light by colloidal particles of colloidal solution is called as Tyndall effect. Now why this scattering takes place? Because particle size has been increased. Here the particle size was so small that they will not scatter light. But here particle size is such that it scatters light. What happens to the suspension? Where particle size is greater, the particle settles down. That's why I will draw a diagram. I will explain this. That if I have to draw a diagram, I will just make space here. That this is the source of light. This is the source of light. Torch, or we can keep lamp. This light is passing through this lens or anything, glass material through which it is passing. Then here I make a container here. In that container, this is the colloidal solution, and this is the particle, colloidal particle, and it scatters light in all directions in space. Like this. So this is the nothing but scattered light. Scattered light, and this particular part is called as Tyndall cone, because it's like cone, like this. This is like cone. That's why it is called as Tyndall cone. And how this is observed? This is observed through microscope, ultra microscope we call it. This is an optical instrument. Of course, we need not to draw the detailed diagram like given in the textbook, but draw this and label it. That this is ultra microscope. It is invented by, of course, in examination you need not to write this, but it is designed by Sigmund Lee, name of scientist, who devised this ultra microscope. So we have source of light, Tyndall cone, colloidal solution, scattered light, ultra microscope, and then as usual we have to give PDF label to the diagram as the Tyndall effect. See the difference. If it is homogeneous solution, two solution particle, it is so small, disappear, won't scatter light. If it is suspension, it settles down, and light which is passing through it won't illuminate it, because scattering of light is called as Tyndall effect. If suspension particles are there, they are settling down. So we are dealing with this intermediate particle size, where only possibility of scattering of light. That's why Tyndall effect is seen only in the colloidal solution. There are two conditions of particles. So definition is very simple. Definition most probably they will ask: scattering of light by colloidal particles of colloidal solution is called as Tyndall effect. And we can say one more sentence, right? Illuminated path of light is called as Tyndall cone. Tyndall cone. This illumination is scattered in all directions in space. That is the phenomenon we are talking about. Now, what are the conditions? Two conditions are there. First one is the wavelength of scattered light should be nearly equal to the size of colloidal particle. Because if size is smaller, that exactly happens in true solution. No Tyndall effect. And next one, if we compare the refractive index, dispersed phase and dispersion medium, their refractive index should not be same. Then only this effect is seen. There should be difference in refractive index. You learn in physics that they should be different. Then only the scattering of light is possible. We observe this effect in daily life. In any dark room, or say in cinema hall. This is screen in cinema hall where we see picture, and this is the projector. And from this projector, the light falls on screen. We see the movement, and we say that picture is going on. But in this light, if we see the dust particles, they appear as shining patches. In any dark room you can observe this. Only the light is coming. The whole is dark, and the light is coming. The whole room is dark, and the light is coming. In that light cone, there are many dust particles which are shining here and there. So that exactly we see. This is the dust particles, but these dust particles are illuminated. They are shining because dust particles are of colloidal size. So this all about the Tyndall effect for us. Important thing is definition: scattering of light by colloidal particles of colloidal solution. What is the effect? The path of light is illuminated when viewed right angle to the propagation of light. When viewed through ultra microscope, the illuminated path of light is called as Tyndall cone, and this is because the particle size is more than the 1 nanometer. These conditions and ultra microscope, no need to mention name, just it is mentioned in textbook. That's why I have given Sigmund U and Sigmund D. And this ultra microscope does not give idea about the size and the shape of the colloidal particle. Exact size and shape is not predicted by using this ultra microscope. So this is the Tyndall effect. For us, the important thing is definition, diagram, condition. Two conditions are there. It is just write one after another these properties we have to learn. So try to understand why these properties are exhibited. They are exhibited because of their unique size, which is intermediate to true solution and the suspension. Now, next property is the color. We can say color of colloidal particles. Color of colloidal particles depends on wavelength of scattered light, because every wavelength corresponds to a particular color. V, I, B, G, Y, O, R. You know that. And this wavelength again depends on, first is the nature of particles, size of particles, and third one is how the observer receives light. These three factors are responsible for this wavelength of scattered light. For example, if we have 5 particles of gold and we have colloidal gold, when we go from this 5 particle to colloidal gold, size is increasing, and we can see the changes in color. 5 particles are red, as their size increases they become purple, because it depends on the size of particle. Size of particle decides wavelength of scattered light, wavelength of scattered light decides the color. Then it becomes blue, and then it becomes golden, like this. So as size of colloidal particles are increasing, we can see that the color is getting changed. It also depends on how observer receives light. 2 types of light observer receives. Observer means we who are observing. One is transmitted light. And reflected light. If we have milk plus water, which is of course colloidal solution, emulsion, through transmitted light it appears blue, and reflected light it appears red. Red means long wavelength and blue means short wavelength. So it also depends on how observer receives the light. What it affects? It affects the wavelength. Wavelength decides the color of the colloidal particle. So these 3-4 factual parts mentioned that we have to remember and recall. This is about the color. The next one is the kinetic property. Very lengthy topic compared to marks. One another after concepts will come, but will be definitely benefited to complete this topic at this time, because when regular classes start, we have to concentrate more on important topic. This is also important. It doesn't mean that it's important, but as you are more free now, you can prepare it. That's why I have taken deliberately this topic at this particular time. Next is the fourth property, is the Brownian movement. It is the kinetic property. Kinetic is regarding the movement. So how to define Brownian movement? Again, question will be asked on it. We can say random or zigzag movement of colloidal particles solution. The particles are moving here and there. First observed by Robert Brown in the pollen grains, and again to honor him, the name is given as Brownian Now what is the cause of this? Why Brownian movement is observed? It is because of collision between particles of dm and dp, dispersion medium and disperse phase. Dispersion medium particles, disperse phase particle, they collide. Just like on the carom board, striker and coin. Striker is moving, it collides with coin, and then coin starts moving depending on the force. Of course, it's not random. You play carom, if you are expert, it is not random, otherwise it is random there also. But thing is that the collision between particles of dp and dm, continuously moving dispersion medium particles collides them, they transfer their kinetic energy to them, and then it starts moving. We can say that this Brownian movement independent of nature of colloid, means whether colloid is associated or multimolecular or macromolecular or say gel, sol, that doesn't matter, independent. And this Brownian movement inversely proportional to size of particles. If particles are larger, movement is of course slower. And this Brownian movement is again inversely proportional to viscosity of solution. If solution is more viscous, particles will not move properly. If carom board is more rough, the movements are not smoother. We add boric powder to it, isn't it? So there are various ways to make it smooth, but generally we do it. So viscosity greater, medium, solution, Brownian movement is low. Gives stability to colloids, prevent settling of colloidal particles. Now how it gives stability? It makes sure that particles are dispersed. If they are not moving, they may come closer. They may come closer, they may aggregate more, and they settle down, suspension. And this dispersion converts to suspension. That's why they are very crucial for the stability of the colloidal solution. Diagram we can draw like this. Any direction, particles are moving like this. Diagram is like that. In any direction they are moving. You will show the 5-6 particles and they are moving here and there, because it is random, or it is called as zigzag movement of particles. So this is the Brownian movement kinetic property, zigzag or random movement of colloidal particles due to collision between particles of dispersion medium or disperse phase. Gives stability, particles are not allowed to settle down. Independent of nature of colloid, depends on size, inversely proportional, viscosity of solution, inversely proportional, and the diagram. So this is the kinetic property called as Brownian movement. Now the next property is the most important property. All properties are equally important, but we can say you should understand this in a proper way, because many properties are based on that, and that property is nothing but next one, fifth one, charge on colloidal particles. Now 3-4 points are very important here. First point, I should say that colloidal particles, this dispersed phase particle, remember, colloidal particles always carry equal and similar, equal in magnitude, similar, all will have positive charge, all will have negative charge, and with equal, it is not that one particle is more positive and another is less positive. It is not like that. Equal and similar charge. So all colloidal particles always carries equal and similar, quality wise equal, quantity wise equal, quality wise similar charge, which is responsible for stability, because this charge do not allow the colloidal particles to come closer. We know what happens when they come. Once they come closer, settles down in suspension form, which is responsible for stability as similar charges repel. Similar charges repulsion. That's why they won't allow to come closer, and it gives the stability. Now, what is the origin of that charge? There are two reasons why the charge is there. One is the capture of electron in electrodispersion of metals in Bredichin method. In that vaporization, maybe one of the electrons coming out of that, and that is adsorbed on the surface of metal, and maybe it is negative charge. If electron is captured, the colloidal particle is negatively charged, or it is due to preferential adsorption of ions from solution. When we add electrolyte, it provides two ions, positive and negative. Dispersed phase particle pick up one ion, preferential adsorption, and another will remain in solution. So that ion will be present on colloidal particle and it gives the charge. And they are mentioned like this, and or this may be, and along with this another one reason is that Helmholtz, name of scientist, electrical double layer. Now we'll see what we mean by Helmholtz electrical double layer. But this charge is very important. All will carry equal and similar charge, responsible for their stability. And these are the two reasons, or possible reasons. Out of that, this particular reason is most accepted reason. It is believed that they are being charged because of this preferential adsorption. Now we take example to know what we mean by preferential adsorption. If we take silver nitrate solution, and if we add this to the potassium iodide solution, small amount of silver nitrate is added to the solution of potassium iodide, we get silver iodide, and this silver iodide now adsorb one of the ion which is common in solution. Solution has K plus and I minus. What is the ion common between silver iodide and potassium iodide? It is iodide. That's why it adsorbs one ion and it becomes negatively charged. You understand this? Out of two ions, preferential adsorption prefers iodide ion, which is common ion between solution and that precipitate. If we have no potassium iodide and silver nitrate solution, and if we add potassium iodide to silver nitrate solution, same colloidal solution we get, AgI. But now which ion is common between silver nitrate and silver iodide? It is silver ion. So it is positively charged. Two more examples. They are taking, so we mention that also. Ferric chloride is added to excess water, excess hot water, Fe2O3.SH2, hydrated ferric oxide, and it adsorbs Fe+3 ion, and it becomes positively charged. Same FeCl3 if it is added to sodium hydroxide, we get hydrated ferric oxide, and it is negatively charged. So negatively charged, positively charged, positively charged, negatively charged. The charge is acquired by the colloidal particles on the adsorption of ions, and from solution they are put these ions. Now due to this ion, what happens you see here? This is the colloid, and suppose it adsorbs positive ion or negative ion. For example, this ion, AgI iodide. What happens to this K- ion? This K- ions remains in solution. This is called as counter ion. Counter ion. Why it is called as counter? Because this negative, this is positive, opposite. So there are positive ions present in solution here and there, and they may attracted by this negative. So what we are getting here is the electric double layer, and discovered by scientist Helmholtz. That's why it is called as Helmholtz electric double layer. This is adsorbed fixed layer, and this is diffused because it can go here and there. Mobile layer, mobile because moving here and there, and the electric potential difference, because there is opposite charges, so potential difference is bound to arise. Not of very large quantity, smaller one, but it will be there. Electric potential difference between fixed adsorbed ions or layer of ions and diffused layer ions. It's called electrokinetic potential. Why kinetic? Because of movement, and that is also called zeta potential. Zeta potential. Now this zeta potential is responsible for the stability of the colloidal particles. How it is responsible? Why it is called as zeta potential? Because it is denoted by this letter in Greek alphabet: alpha, beta, gamma, delta, like that. It's zeta. potential. If it is large, we get the stable colloid, because if it is large, it means repulsive forces more, charge separations more, and that's why possibility of coagulation, it prevents the coagulation. And if it is smaller, relatively smaller, then we get unstable colloid. Why? Because attractive force is more now, and coagulation occurs. So this zeta potential or electrokinetic potential, the potential difference between adsorbed fixed layer of ions and diffused mobile layer of ions, is responsible for the stability of the colloid. So for us, important is all colloids carrying equivalent similar charges which are responsible for their stability, and the electrokinetic potential developed between ions, and it is called as zeta potential. And all this description, you just read once, everything will be clear, nothing difficult into it. But as this is adsorbed ion and it gives charges to colloid, so some colloids are positively charged colloids and some are negatively charged colloids. Now which colloids are positively charged and which colloids are negatively charged, we have to make one table here and try to understand exactly the examples of this. Just read once, you will understand. This is not very difficult concept. Positively charged colloid. Positively charged colloid and negatively charged colloid. The first positively charged colloids are hydrated metal oxides. Example is Fe2O3 dot XH2, Al2O3 dot XH2, CrO3 dot XH2. Hydrated water of crystallization with the metal oxide. Then next is basic dyes or basic diester we call it, like methylene blue. Third is hemoglobin present in blood. Fourth is oxides like titanium oxides. And fifth is metal hydroxide. Example is ferric hydroxide. So if we come across hydrated metal oxide, basic dyes like methylene blue, hemoglobin, oxides like titanium oxide and hydroxide like ferric hydroxide, there is possibility that it is positively charged colloid. Just by looking into this, that's why we made this classification. How charge is positive? By the preferential adsorption of ions from the dispersive medium. That's what we learned previous part. Metal soles, they are negatively charged. Example, gold, silver, platinum. Or metal sulfide soles, they are also negatively charged, like As2, S3, cadmium sulfite. Acidic dyes. Acidic dyes. Example, eosin, quangorate, this type of dyes. Or starch, gum, gelatin, clay, charcoal, silicic acid, their colloids are of negatively charged. So I have to remember this list because we have to use this information in various MCQs or in theory examination also. So these are positively charged colloid, they are negatively charged colloid. How charge is determined? By electrophoresis method, which we learn in the next class. So just read these points. If any difficulty is there, you can clarify that doubt. So thank you for watching this video.